Hi everybody, my name is Matt King with WoFlow. I'm the Chief Creative Officer, and today I'm with Ken Wolski with Coalition for Medical Marijuana of New Jersey. Thanks for coming, Ken.
Well, thank you for having me, Matt.
You bet, you bet. There's so much I want to talk to you about, and I think a big thing that we need to know in the Cannabis 101 phase when everybody's learning about like simple anatomy like THC and CBD, I think we can go back a little further and let's talk about why was cannabis illegal in the first place? Because before it wasn't.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. Cannabis was a recognized medicinal for thousands of years throughout the world. In fact, it was in the U.S. pharmacopoeia for almost 100 years, from about 1840 to the 1940s. And there were over 100 scientific studies done in the U.S. about how it was used. It was even recommended for infants.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was a recognized medicinal until 1937. And you know, Matt, I really think that ending alcohol prohibition had something to do with it, because one of the man, Harry Anslinger, was an official, a government official in alcohol prohibition. And when that was ended, there was this army of agents who really had nothing to do. So they needed to find, you know, some demon to
a use,
yeah.
a purpose,
yes,
right?
Yes, absolutely. So, you know, this may be a cautionary tale for us too, as we look about legalizing marijuana. You know, look at the army of people who are right now fighting against marijuana, you know, arresting people for it. 30,000 arrests in New Jersey for marijuana, and think about, you know, how we want to use that resource productively and not have them turn against something that could be, you know, very innocent, like chamomile tea, for example, to outlaw that. But really, there is no scientific basis for outlawing marijuana. It was a recognized medicinal, and it was all just a propaganda campaign run by this Mr. Anslinger and the Hearst newspaper.
Reefer madness.
Reefer madness, yes, that's exactly what it was. You know, they took sensationalistic stories about someone murdering their parents after smoking a joint, and you know, they blasted that all over the headlines and alarmed the public about about marijuana, and created this threat that did not exist. And there was no science to back it. The best science of the day was the India Hemp Drug Commission, which was from 1937. It was done about 40 years ago in the late 1800s, 1890s, and it was a 9-volume study of marijuana use in India by the British government. And you know, they found that there was, you know, after looking at the possible relationships between marijuana and mental illness and physical illness and criminality, they found none of that. They said the only difference between a marijuana user and a non-marijuana user was the use of marijuana. There was no difference in mental illness or physical illness or criminality or achievement. So, you know, if they wanted to rely on science, they could have relied on that, but they didn't.
And to the propaganda point, didn't they made marijuana the name from cannabis,
right.
And it was spelt with an H because of the Mexican Americans or the Mexican immigrants coming in during the Depression. So they were taking our jobs, and you know,
yes,
then having to defend ourselves.
Demonizing an outsider. You know, when here we are, we're supposed to be the melting pot here in this country.
Yeah.
So, and yes, they typically use the word cannabis in all those medical preparations that were available in America. And you can still find bottles, you know, pictures of bottles that they used.
I've seen
cannabis.
Lilly's pharmaceutical, like their tincture from back in the day, early 1900s. That's interesting, because hemp was a crop that we had to grow. It was a resource for clothing, for ropes, for food. It's just so interesting that, I mean, you mentioned Hearst. I know that they had lumber and paper holdings. So it really was like a lobby type of situation where they saw this crop come in and they thought it as a threat to their business.
Sure. Hemp could make paper. I mean, the Constitution was written on hemp paper. You know, so that was a potential financial threat to the Hearst industry.
That's really interesting. And it's also, that's funny as well, because in World War II, hemp was then encouraged following the act to be regrown, and then they had the Hemp for Victory campaign.
So, hemp was outlawed at the same time marijuana was outlawed in the early 1940s, and it was outlawed because it looked like marijuana. You know, even though it was non-toxic and it didn't get anybody high, there was no psychotropic effect to it. So, you know, it was really ridiculous to outlaw hemp too, which was a very useful plant throughout the world.
That's really interesting. And then come the 60s and come the Controlled Substance Act by Nixon, Anslinger, he was still around then. Is that
yes,
right?
yes. He was a long-running government official, yes.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Goodness. Let's see. And then I guess like a broad statistic that we're definitely dealing with right now when we want to talk about a toxic drug or misuse, more misuse would be the opioid epidemic that's going on right now in the country in New Jersey.
Right.
And it was a recent condition added to the conditions to qualify for the program.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, one of our board members was instrumental in introducing that petition to the review panel at the New Jersey Department of Health. And the review panel did a very good job. They certainly took their time. They really sort of waited for the new administration to come on before the final results of their review were. But in 2018, they did approve opioid use disorder as a qualifying condition for marijuana therapy. And for good reason. You know, marijuana really is a substitute for opiates. People who are on opiates and they introduce marijuana into their systems, they find that they need fewer opiates. So, and marijuana, you know, because it not only is an analgesic, but it can reduce your anxiety, and it can produce a slight euphoria. It eases the withdrawal symptoms that people may be going through. So
what is an analgesic?
Analgesic is a painkiller.
Okay.
Painkiller. So it has these pain-killing properties in itself. The marijuana does, but in addition to that, it also reduces anxiety associated with it. It reduces and it produces a slight euphoria. So it's very useful. In fact, they found that in medical marijuana states, there was a 25% reduction in opiate overdose deaths. So that was a very profound finding. 13 states, and all those states also had home cultivation in them too.
Oh, wow.
But New Jersey does recognize marijuana as a treatment for opiate addiction now, opiate use disorder, along with medication-assisted treatment, such as the methadone and
right, you would need some help getting yourself off of
right.
opioids. That's true. How come opioid didn't get added in the first initial conditions that were added when Murphy came in?
When Murphy came in, or
yeah, when they expanded the program.
Well, they were in 2000. That was just last year.
Yes.
In 2018, when Murphy came in, it was approved, but it was approved as part of musculoskeletal pain issues. So
okay.
It wasn't approved. Basically, you could be prescribed or recommended marijuana by your physician for the underlying musculoskeletal pain that may have started your opiate addiction, but not for opiate addiction itself. But other reasons, people use heroin for other reasons besides pain, control too. They just use it, as an emotional reaction or dealing with psychic pain. So there are, and this is now a treatment for that. What the Murphy administration did was, they approved chronic pain as a qualifying condition for both musculoskeletal issues and for issues related to your internal organs. So that's a major reason that people use marijuana actually for chronic pain throughout the country. But also they approved it for anxiety, both primary anxiety that happens by itself, and anxiety that is secondary to another condition like autism or Alzheimer's disease. And in addition, they also, Murphy administration also approved Tourette's syndrome and migraine headaches. So they did a tremendous expansion of the program, and really they doubled the number of patients that in 1 year that the Christie administration took 8 years to build up.
Yeah. I hear like about 2,000 patients each month are coming on board, which is...
Yeah, we now have about 45,000 patients in the New Jersey medical marijuana program here in 2019.
That's great. I think it's sort of mind-blowing. I didn't come from a science background, so it's kind of it's mind-blowing that this plant has so many uses in the wellness and healthcare pharmaceutical area. I'm curious because pharmaceutical, that would be, it has to be consistent, it has to be tested, it has to be able to be reproduced exactly. So that's pharmaceutical. What do you feel about the entourage effect, which is where you have full spectrum of all the cannabinoids being there and acting with each other?
Mm-hmm. Well, I toured 3 of the alternative treatment centers here in New Jersey, and I can tell you from firsthand experience that the way they produced those crops and the way they packaged the material, it's very much like a pharmaceutical product. Because these plants the plants that they grow are grown from mother plants, so that they know the approximate cannabinoid content of each plant. And it's done under sterile conditions, as sterile as possible, and they can produce a consistent and reliable product that is, I would say, pharmaceutical grade. And it certainly is world-class marijuana, believe me, that is produced in these alternative treatment centers here in New Jersey. When the top product is available, unfortunately, because of the expanding program, the Alternative Treatment Center is having some growing pains and trying to meet the increased demand, and they really can't do that. So they run out of certain strains, and they run out of the top quality product, and they sell like what they call the shake or the lower quality product. But it still is the same cannabinoid content. So if you're looking for something with a high CBD content, a low THC content, you can that's available, or vice versa, and you can tailor what's available to the particular needs that you have as a patient in that program.
That's really interesting. A friend of mine who's also a patient, he was in Curaleaf in South Jersey, in Belmar, and he was there for 420, and he felt so badly because he goes there for anxiety, so his physical health is fine, but he was in line for an hour and a half.
Oh my.
And there are real patients, that are struggling even just to stand. So it's kind of interesting that the patient base is continuing to grow.
Yeah.
And
420. That was kind of a holiday, a marijuana holiday, and you could expect crowds. I myself have been to Curaleaf several times, and I've never had maybe a 10-minute wait.
Oh, okay,
not
great.
More than a 10-minute
That's
wait
good.
for. So they do move people very quickly, and they have a certain, they've certainly increased their staff to deal with the increased numbers.
Oh wow, that's really awesome.
But we had the most restrictive program in the nation when we first started in 2010. That's when the bill passed into law. But even with our most restrictive program, if you consider for a second, Matt, the conditions that we recognize, the state of New Jersey recognized even back in 2010, 3 neurological conditions: multiple sclerosis, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, and muscular dystrophy, seizures, glaucoma, Crohn's disease and other digestive diseases, cancer, AIDS, chronic pain, wasting syndrome, and terminal illness. Now here's an entire spectrum of the body. The only thing we did not recognize was mental or emotional conditions, and actually we got Governor Christie to pass a law recognizing post-traumatic stress disorder in 2016.
Wow,
so that was the first mental or emotional condition. And of course, we did that because we wanted the state to recognize mental or emotional conditions, but also we wanted, in recognition of the fact that 22 veterans a day were committing suicide because PTSD was so poorly managed by traditional pharmaceuticals.
Right.
So
you get them hooked, and then they have no control.
Right.
It's really rough. That's interesting that you mentioned it. We mentioned it just before we hopped on, and you were saying that CMMNJ was probably going to finish its job 2010 when the medical bill happened, but there's still work that needs to be had.
Yeah, we realized how busy we were, really. I mean, it's a process. And so, we thought, well, when medical marijuana passes, we won't have a role anymore. But we really became busier than ever. And, especially with the Christie administration, who came in board a couple days after Governor Corzine signed this bill and said, and Governor Christie said that he would not have signed the bill, and he started a series of delays and obstructions into the full implementation of this medical marijuana bill. So
Man, that is that is incredible. The FDA has approved 2 drugs that contain THC. Dronabinol?
Dronabinol, yes.
Dronabinol.
Marinol, which is, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, these are the synthetic cannabinoids so that are produced by the pharmaceutical industry. And the other types of cannabinoids are the phytocannabinoids in the marijuana plant and the endocannabinoids that our own body makes.
And phyto meaning plant.
Phyto meaning plant, correct.
Okay.
So, you know, there's basically those 3 different types of cannabinoids. And this was really a function of the discovery of the endocannabinoid system in the 1980s and 1990s that really was a new system in the human body that was just really recently discovered. And you know, this system interacts with all the other systems in the body, the circulatory system, the respiratory system, even the skeletal system, and certainly the musculoskeletal system. And it's the basis of this system is to restore homeostasis or balance to the body. And that's why marijuana has such a wide range of effects throughout the body. There are receptors for these cannabinoids in every organ of the human body. So really, some researchers believe that marijuana can play a role, well, the endocannabinoid system can play a role in all disease processes.
That's incredible. So it touches nearly every single thing that we attract or enable. Yes. That's really something. It's kind of funny because I'm used to more of like an Eastern side of medicine. I go to an acupuncture instead of like a regular MD or a DO. So my thought process is when it comes to the food you eat and the stresses that you have on you, they have to be healthy stresses. So using cannabis as a medicine just to like calm yourself and to, you know, regulate yourself, it's beneficial because you may be warding off things that your family is susceptible to: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, just your environment stresses.
Yeah, well, we call it preventive medicine. It's also that, you know, it can stop you from getting ill. It can stop you from having unfortunate reactions to stress and other problems.
Yeah, and then it elevates your mood. You can laugh forever and, you know, just enjoy the moments.
Maybe not forever, but
not forever. No, but a good time at the very least.
And you know, that really makes such a difference to a dying person. You know, that you know, here's something that can elevate the mood, that can control pain, and that can increase the appetite, that can really help so many ways. People who are in the end stage of life, that it really needs to be there needs to be a much more vigorous outreach for people in hospice and people in the final stages of their life to have access to this. And the Murphy administration is trying to do that too, which I certainly give them credit for.
The caregiver laws that they're setting up in 2703, they are gearing themselves so that people in the hospital, if you're in the hospital and if you're a medical patient, someone in the hospital can go to a dispensary or an ATC and can retrieve the medicine for them.
Well, one of the provisions in the bill to expand the medical program right now is to allow for institutional caregivers. And so that very person would be an employee in that hospital institution who would be qualified to go and get the marijuana and give it to the people in the hospital situations.
Yeah, that is a flexibility that is necessary.
That would be great, because right now a lot of hospitals do not allow the use of marijuana at all in the hospital. Some threaten to expel you from the hospital, even if you're there for a broken leg and you use marijuana to control your seizures. You know, they say, well, as long as you got this broken leg, you can't use the marijuana to control your seizures.
Oh my goodness.
So it is a problem right now, and hopefully the law will straighten that out.
Okay. And another thing that you guys have been a strong supporter of is home grow. And it's interesting, we also spoke about how states treat their programs a certain way. And in Vermont and DC, you can have home grow, so it is legal, but there is no dispensing.
Right.
What's your take on the New Jersey market?
Well, you know, home grow was originally approved by the Senate while the bill was working its way through the legislature in 2009. But when it got to the Assembly, it was taken out of the bill. So we had a very good bill, but home grow was taken out at the last minute, and out-of-state ID cards was taken out, and chronic pain as a qualifying condition was taken out. So when the medical marijuana bill passed in 2010, it certainly wasn't an ideal bill. It was bittersweet victory, but nevertheless, you know, it's something we can build on. That's what we recognized, was that there's just more work to be done. We certainly support home grow for patients. You know, we think that you know, New Jersey has the most expensive medical marijuana in the country at over $400 an ounce. So you know, here's a lot of patients who are impoverished by their illness, simply can't afford this, Matt. So here's an opportunity for access to this. And not only that, but some of the strains are not always available at the alternative treatment centers, or they may be available in a way in the other side of the state, you know, so makes it essentially not available to these patients. So home grow is an option for patients that we are certainly hoping will be reincorporated into the medical program first, and then possibly even you know, as part of a legalization bill. You know, but right now there doesn't seem to be any support, really, or very little support in the legislature or at the governor's desk for including home grow as part of the legalization. But I think if we had started with a pilot program just for patients, then we could show that this is not dangerous. It can be controlled very well, and it would not be abused, and it would not really seriously affect the revenue that the state expects.
And it's funny too, because it's home grow, so it's gardening. How many people garden? How many people successfully garden and stick to it? You know, like, you're going to have a small handful who really appreciate it and are really going to need it, and those are the ones that are actually going to do it. That's interesting. It's funny when you talk about cannabis, because it's like, it is politics. So if people really want home grow, or if they want certain enactments, or if they want their voice to be heard, what do you suggest? How do you suggest someone to go ahead and pursue their legislation? Well,
thank you, Matt. But you know, first of all, we say join us, join the Coalition for Medical Marijuana in New Jersey, because we keep on top of this. We send out monthly emails to people. All you have to do is give us your email address on our website, and you can attend a meeting. We have meetings on the second Tuesday of every month at the Lawrence Township Library from 7 to 9. The public's invited, and we keep on top of issues that are important to the public, like home grow and like legalization and expansion of the medical program. And we'll tell you what you can do, and that is, and we'll help you to do it. We'll help you to contact your elected officials, to write letters, to make phone calls, to visit, and to testify at various meetings, like council meetings and committee meetings in the legislature.
That's awesome. That's excellent. I think that's about it. I really appreciate your time, Ken.
Well, thank you, Matt. And remember, donations to CMMNJ, a 501c3 nonprofit educational organization, are income tax deductible.
There you go. And also for WoFlow, we do have a street team. If you're interested in getting involved in the cannabis industry, we are advocates and educators for cannabis and are going for a medical dispensary license in Trenton. So if you're interested, check out our page. It's woahflow.com. Thank you so much, everybody.
Wish you the best of luck, man.
Thank you.